why manipulate? Why?
No, I don't think you should.
Is there an area where it's advantageous? Is it advantageous in the short term? Is it?
Well, number one, people don't like conflict. So in terms of radical honesty, people are normally very non-confrontational. We're raised, at least here in the culture I grew up in, is very much don't rock the boat, don't make a scene, that kind of thing. And so a lot of people are just uncomfortable having hard conversations. So radical honesty is really tough for people because they go, well, I'm going to say this, and then you're not going to like hearing it.
Yeah.
And so you're going to be angry at me.
Yeah.
And even for a moment, that makes me very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And what's a skill that I had to get to is like, okay, yeah, like let's talk while we're angry.
That's a good point. Well, that's a good point is to recognize that I think what manipulation does is it time crunches the process of getting what you want, which is, okay, I'll be deceitful or just not fully honest about this, but I can very quickly in the moment get the positive response that I want. Versus if you go radical honesty, it's like, okay, we just opened up this can of worms process.
Well, people
that
also
now needs to be worked through.
Actually, you know what I just thought of also? People don't like rejection. So one reason that people manipulate is because they don't like confrontation. A different unrelated one is they don't like rejection. So asking for the promotion directly, you might hear no, and you won't like that.
And if you don't ask, you can't hear
these texts that we've been getting. Hey, how's it going? I'm going to reach out with these weird innocuous texts, even though we haven't talked in years. I didn't reject the person because they never asked.
So
they said, how are you doing? I said, good, how are you? They said, it's hard. And I said, I'm really sorry to hear that. I hope it turns around for you. And what they were hoping I'd say is, oh, tell me all about why it's hard. Let's get on the phone. But they never got rejected.
They
never got rejected.
They didn't get what they want.
They said
but
it's
they didn't
hard.
Get rejected.
And I said, I'm really sorry to hear that. And I hope that it turns around for you. And I sent a little heart emoji. And that's not a rejection to them. So their ego, pride, whatever you want to call it, is completely unscathed, even though what they actually wanted was to talk to me. And they didn't even ask to talk to me.
Yeah.
And so I think we manipulate to avoid confrontation and we manipulate to avoid rejection. And weirdly enough, we achieve our goals.
Yeah.
We don't have confrontation and we don't get rejected.
Interesting.
We also don't get what we want. And so what we've had to learn to do, because this isn't how most people are raised, is accept confrontation, get really comfortable with rejection, and then you're way more likely to get what you want.
Well, I think there's a third thing which you touched on, which is manipulation. I think is actually more effective when you're younger than when you are older. When you are younger, you are stuck with a particular circle, which is the friend that your mom puts you in touch with, your mom, your dad, your brother, and your sister, and you're just placed in that family. And this might be a family where honesty just doesn't work. The whole idea of honesty is that it works on the net, on the aggregate. You say you burn one friendship with honesty, but you open up the possibility of a more truthful one.
Yeah.
And when you just have 4 or 5 people in your life,
sure,
it doesn't work.
Sure. If you're the only human I'm ever allowed to talk to,
yeah,
I'm much more scared of confrontation or rejection. When I have all of LA, then
when the world is open,
much more comfortable going, anyone can reject me, anyone can hate me, because there's infinite other opportunities to connect with people.
And I think that's a habit that's worth recognizing and tough to break, which is this made sense when in your small community back home.
Sure.
Now it doesn't, because you can open that community up and have better relationships than you had. But the price you will pay is that the honesty that you need to have might end some of those relationships.
It never did with me, but radical honesty as a kid might get you a beating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're 7 years old. You need these people for food and shelter. And
it'll definitely get you a beating.
10 times your size.
Definitely get you.
You know?
No, there's a degree to which you have to be socialized. You have to modulate your anger and your
radical honesty plus some charisma.
plus and some internal kids. A radical honesty for a child is a temper tantrum.
Yeah.
and an adult has ways of coping and processing that can still be radically honest without pounding your fists on the ground.
So that's fascinating. Yeah. So we manipulate because you have to when you're in a small community and when you're young. We don't like rejection. We don't like confrontation. I like this. We've never talked about this before.
Well, I think it's so common. Here's what we're bumping up against. It doesn't work very well.
And everyone's trying to do it.
And everyone is trying to do it.
Yep.
Why?
Yep.
It must have worked in some way at some time towards some end, if that's the case. And I'm certain, if we had some horrible Y2K or whatever, manipulation might go back to being the name of the most effective game. I no longer think it is, luckily for us in the world we live in, and I think for hopefully a lot of our listeners.
Yeah.
So worth thinking about.